Previously on Flowers for Zoe, Stories for Dennis.
I want to tell you guys about Rat Park. Dr. Lloyd Sederer, he says, in immediate and powerful ways, opioids change how we feel, how we think, how we relate, and how we behave. These drugs transport us away from loneliness and isolation. We need to consider better ways of supporting people.
Today's podcast, we discuss the wicked world of fentanyl withdrawal. This topic can be quite intense for some people. So just a heads up, if this topic is activating for you in any type of way, please don't forget to reach out and talk to somebody.
Okay, welcome to podcast number 4.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Today's exciting because the three of us are here. We missed you last time, Zoe, and we talked a lot about you.
I know life is kind of chaotic right now, but in a good way, I guess you can say.
Mm-hmm.
There's some downfalls with dealing with certain things right now and being on the other side, trying to help people. It's very different than being the one that's being helped. It's been a little bit busy with that and having the kids more often, but I'm here and I'm going to try and make it the most important thing right now so that we can help people and get it out there and get it going.
I just got to say we were talking about this last time about having the good problems in life.
Yeah.
And to hear you say I'm spending so much more time with the kids right now, and it was just months ago. Things were so different.
I know.
So different. And now look at you. You're flying.
It's so awesome.
I love it.
Our topic today is going to take us back to a not so great time, but a really important conversation.
In order to continue on with the good things in life and to move past the bad things and just in order to have a good future, I think that it's really important to talk about the bad things that have happened and the obstacles that not only myself, but all of us have overcome with my addiction. Mm-hmm. I think it's a really, really important thing to talk about.
Well, we are so glad that you are open to sharing. There's a lot that we can take away from your experiences. I imagine a lot of people out there for which, the things that you're talking about will really resonate with them.
All right.
So we're going to talk about fentanyl. So let's just make sure we're, what is it? I'm sure anybody who's tuning in is here because, they know that we're talking really specifically about fentanyl. When we talk about substance use, I mean, there's a whole world of polysubstance use, but today we're talking quite specifically about fentanyl. And, it's an opioid. It's a synthetic opioid, like morphine, codeine, methadone. Fentanyl is a prescribed substance. It's often prescribed in the slow release patch. And people that have either really severe pain or long-term pain, it's a really safe and effective prescribed medication. But, when we talk about fentanyl, we're talking about long-standing opioid addiction and the negative effects of it. It's powerful, super powerful. It's 50 times stronger than heroin. It's 100 times stronger than morphine. And this makes it really dangerous when it's misused. It binds to the body's opioid receptors. So whether you are swallowing it or smoking it or injecting it or snorting it, it's binding to the receptors in your brain. It is controlling those pain centers and emotion centers in the brain. And this is what makes it so effective. So when we talk about withdrawal, we're talking about what happens to the body when the body is used to having this and now it suddenly doesn't have it.
Now I'd like to just take you all back for a moment. When she first told me, Uncle Daniel, I'm about to start my withdrawals. I've been using fentanyl this whole time. When she said that to me, my first thought was she was going to that night get into a detox, get into a rehab or something. I didn't know about Dennis's taper plan at this point. So I was both happy and excited that Zoe was about to go somewhere that night and begin her treatment. Then she got the phone call from her dealer. Like, it was the perfect timing almost. And he told her, look, I'm downstairs. I have a little bit of fentanyl for you at no charge. And Zoe immediately got off the phone and said, okay, Uncle Daniel, I'll be right back. And I freaked a bit, saying, no, Zoe, don't go. We can go through this together. I even said, I'll sit with you while you go through your withdrawals. And I had no idea what the fuck I was in for. And I especially had no idea what Zoe was in for. And so this is an important topic because when dealing with a lot of the industry caregivers, the nurses, the pharmacists, the methadone doctors, and I started talking about Zoe's withdrawals, they completely underwrote it. And they took the stance, well, yeah, that's what's going to happen. She's just going to have to go through it. Well, that's just what happens when you decide to use fentanyl. You're eventually going to have to withdraw and go through it. And I was like, no. Have you seen someone go through withdrawals? So that's why this topic I find particularly important. And it's still shocking to me that people actually think you can get through fentanyl withdrawals in 3 days by yourself without medical assistance. It just seems like it's just impossible to do. And the absolute worst case scenario you can put a human being through, because those withdrawals were traumatizing to me. And I mean, I know, Zoe, you forget a lot of the time that we spent here going through withdrawals, but they were traumatic.
You see, and that's the thing, like a little bit off topic, but bringing up the fact of forgetting. I don't know if I am forgetting because of the drug use and how it affected me while I was using, or if it was just so traumatizing that I blocked it out myself because I don't want to remember how horrible it was. So I
Oh.
still struggle with that. I mean, in reality, I want to remember because it sucks not being able to. It really does. But I must have done something to where I blocked it out, because literally, like, I cannot remember for the life of me, even trying to remember certain things that had happened.
Yeah, and it's not a surprise to me that you forget because they were so intense. I mean, there was one night where I walked into your room and I was going to wake you up early to dose because I wasn't sure if you could make it the 8 hours.
Mhm.
And this was before we agreed to wake you up 2 hours early.
Yeah.
And I walked into your room and you were sitting on the bed and your head was kind of slumped down, but you were sitting. And I said, Zoe, it's time to dose. And you didn't respond. So I called your name louder and you still didn't respond. And then I grabbed you by the shoulders and I shook you a little bit. Zoe, wake up. And you still didn't respond. And in that instant, flashing before my eyes, of course, was, this isn't happening right now. Please don't make this happen right now.
Mhm.
And for an instant, I thought you were gone. Like, tears started coming down my cheeks. And I looked up into the sky and I said, Zoe, wake up. And you finally came to. That's not really talking about the pain of withdrawal, but that's the consequence of withdrawal. The
Yeah,
consequence of withdrawal could easily be death.
easily.
You know, what you're describing, Daniel, also sounds like fentanyl poisoning or
Mhm.
overdose, because, you know, if you take too much, some of the signs of fentanyl overdose or poisoning can be not just sleepiness, but, you know, slow, shallow breathing, trouble breathing. Things can,
Unconsciousness.
yeah, you can become so sedated that you're now unresponsive even to somebody's voice. So as you're describing that, it's hard to, it may be hard to differentiate, you know, what was happening in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah,
It
absolutely.
it kind of makes me feel like, because I don't remember that, and it kind of makes me feel that I was so close on the verge to overdosing that it could have been the end of it. You know, the way you're describing it, like, God, there must have been an angel sitting on my shoulder, because there was a reason I woke up, obviously, you know, but uh, worst case scenario, I could have possibly not have woken up, right?
Oh,
So something was there, or someone was there protecting me, making damn sure that that I woke back up.
And if it was an angel, I think we all know who that was.
My daddy-o.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we talk about, what makes fentanyl such a powerful substance, it is so effective at sedating. You don't realize how sedated you are, and you're not able to control your body when it becomes that sedated. And you may not remember. It's interesting, right? Because you're talking about how there's so much you don't remember. Daniel's talking about how there's nothing he can't not remember. Like he remembers everything and all of those details.
There's nothing that he can forget.
Yeah. Things really slow down in these moments. I remember how closely he was watching you and just, trying, looking for signs that you were okay, looking for signs that, you were at the right dose or not. You didn't have too much of a dose. And it was always a little bit different. And of course it was, because street grade fentanyl in its powdered form is made up of a few different things. And so you don't know what's in it. And this is where the risk is. And sometimes, you would use and you would behave and act in certain ways. And sometimes you'd be extra sedated and sometimes you'd be kind of activated. And it was always a little bit different. Do you remember that, Daniel?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we recorded a lot of the stuff. I was journaling a lot, and the journals came in so handy. And one of the things we did journal was Zoe's, I guess, pain tolerance. We started recording on a 1 to 10 scale. And right before it was time to dose, I would ask Zoe, how are your withdrawals right now on a 1 to 10 scale? And it would be difficult to narrow it down on a 1 to 10 scale, but I think we did a pretty good job. Every time I asked you, you would never go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It would always start at like a 6. I wrote a few things down about what that is. And one paragraph I wrote I'd like to read is, she has tingly skin and burning skin. The tingly skin feels the way your foot feels when it falls asleep and you accidentally move it, awakening it. And little needle-like jabs erupt, basically forcing you to not move your foot, but it's all over your face instead. And it doesn't go away when you stop moving your foot. It's like insects crawling all around your face and never falling off. And the burning skin is similar, but with heat instead of the tingling. Can you talk about that a little bit, so what that felt like?
Oh God, it was horrible. I mean, the tingling skin and the burning, but there was a lot more to it. There was, the fatigue, the restlessness, the aches, the pains, the frustration, the feeling of not being in control of your body, not being able to sit still, the feeling that your whole body needs to stretch, the sleepless nights, the hot and cold sweats, the tossing, the turning, the irritability.
All piled into one.
Yeah, it's a horrible fucking feeling. I would try to push it. I kind of felt, I guess, like if I pushed it long enough, I was doing something good. But in reality, I mean, I was just worsening the feelings, the withdrawals, because I knew eventually I was going to use again. I was tapering, but I was still going to use. So I then came to the conclusion with Uncle Daniel that what's the point of waiting the extra hour when regardless I'm going to use? It's just me tolerating more pain that I really have to right now.
Early on in the beginning, you were really pushing hard.
Yeah.
I think this is when we started to evaluate things and we asked ourselves, okay, from a harm reduction perspective, and harm reduction was going to be about keeping you as safe as possible, ensuring that the withdrawals were going to be manageable. And that suddenly turned into, we got to trust Zoe. And Daniel, talk about this, because I remember when that became the guide.
Yeah, the mantra. We had a mantra, trust in Zoe. And that was all about, when Zoe says she's had enough, it means that it's time to dose again, because the withdrawals were getting so bad.
That might not work, like, to our listeners and whoever's listening. If this is your plan to make a tapering plan, that might not work for you and your team. Your team might not be able to trust you in that sense of letting them know when you're ready to dose again.
That's
You
right.
might not be able to trust yourself in telling them when you need to dose again, because it's very hard, like I said, for an addict to navigate their own brain. So you need to really think about it. Is this really what you want right now? And if you do, then maybe you can put a little bit of trust in yourself to navigate when you know your next dose should be. But it might not work for you. Not to say that you don't want it, because everybody wants to get sober. But I was determined in a sense where I trusted myself at that point to be able to let my team know when I needed to use next. I didn't just take advantage of the situation to get high. I was determined to push it as long as I could until I realized that that was kind of a stupid decision on my part to do. And I stayed with the routine that we made, the hours in between.
I love the way you say it. I was floored. I
Mhm.
was like, oh my God. I was in awe every night, when I sat down to reflect or write my journal, at how much you wanted to quit. The
Yeah.
determination that you had to quit was incredible. And I've never seen anyone go through this before, but I knew it was incredible just because of what you were going through. You could have been in the middle of a 7-8 withdrawal, but you would say, nope, let's push it. We can push it another 15 minutes. We can make this time. And it was hard as hell because sometimes you couldn't
Yeah.
push it anymore. And then on top of that, you had this sense of responsibility and a sense of guilt, like, oh my God, we're doing all this. I can't not make the time schedule. I'm going to
Mhm.
be letting everybody down. And that became really important to you because the more
Yeah,
people
that
we
was
had on the
huge.
team, the more eyes were on you. And that's a lot
Yeah.
of pressure. And you're
Yeah.
dealing with this pressure along with the 24 things you listed, along with the tingly skin and burning skin. And that's only really the level 1 withdrawal. We haven't even gotten up to level 12.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
I get the flu, I am the biggest baby in the world. I take 2 days off of work. I flop on the couch and I don't move for anybody.
I actually know that to be a
Yeah.
true fact because I seen him the last time he was sick. And oh yeah, it is so true what women say. Like, women, you get sick, we got to take care of kids, we still got to do our day-to-day shit, we got to go to work. Men, oh my God,
Yeah, we
they
really
cannot do nothing.
yeah, we it's true. We really have a healthy perspective on our own health.
Hmm.
That's the way I like to put it.
Oh
Anyways,
yeah.
So I just want to, there's a couple things I want to say. One, let's talk about the word dose, because I don't think we've actually explained to our listenership about why we're using that word.
oh, we kind of chose that word because it was different. Zoe wouldn't normally say, all right, let's call the dealer and dose. It was more of a clinical term. And I remember Zoe actually saying, I like that we use the word dose instead of use or smoke or
Yeah.
however. It was a bit more clinical. We used it meaning that Zoe's going to smoke fentanyl. That was her dose.
Yeah.
And what was it like for you, Zoe?
The word dose?
Yeah, like how did that change things?
I guess it changed things in a way where using didn't have the same meaning as it used to for me anymore. Before I used to use to get high, then it turned into dosing to not be sick. And people use the word dose also at methadone clinics when they take Suboxone or when they take methadone. It's a dose, it's a medication so that you're not sick. It's not using to get high, it's dosing to not be sick. So it changed a lot when my intentions changed. That word changed.
And just to set the stage a little bit, I mean, because we're talking about tapering and you're withdrawing at home and tapering down, and we're trying to figure out what harm reduction was going to look like for you in this setting. And we were also waiting for medically supported detox to happen. We were waiting. You were on a wait list. We knew that that was going to happen. We didn't know how long you were going to be waiting. We knew wait lists were long. We knew that it might be anywhere from a week to several weeks. And so this was the plan in place to keep you as safe as we could until you were able to start that program.
Yeah, and in the beginning, Zoe had no intention of going to detox in the early stages. She had
Nope.
such a horrible time at detox, like, and I wouldn't even bring it up. We got to a certain point where I wouldn't bring it up anymore because I knew Zoe had made up her mind. It was no. Zoe would not walk into that room again and sit there alone for 3 days and go through physical pain.
No, there was
She-
no way in hell.
No way in hell. So the taper plan is all we had.
Yeah, at that point, the medically supported detox was your name on a list in case you changed your mind.
And I think we even spoke about it, and Zoe was careful. I think everyone was tiptoeing around going into detox.
We even came up with something to where we made an agreement. And I'm not saying this because I remember coming up with this agreement. I'm saying it because me and Uncle Daniel had spoken about it after the fact. But we made an agreement that if me going to detox didn't end up working out and I had to leave for whatever reason, that he would keep everything here in case I needed to come out and use for any reason. If I needed to continue to taper without going through full detox, we made the agreement that the stuff would be here until it wasn't, until there was absolutely no need for it anymore.
So what did that mean to you? Knowing that, because that sounds like plan B. That sounds like, okay, here's the backup plan.
There
What
was
did-
because I was so against and scared of detox because I went through it before and it was hell. So there was that fear in me, like that what if I go to this place, it doesn't work out, I can't handle the withdrawals, I can't do it, I have to leave. I leave, and then what? I'm going to have to keep going the tapering route because I don't have another choice at that point. Right? So that was my fallback plan. That was my backup plan in case all else failed.
So how do you think having that backup plan, like, did it turn out to be helpful? How did it help?
For me, it did because I felt like I was still safe. I was safe. If it failed, what I was doing, if that failed, I could go home and I would be okay.
And it was a controversial decision.
Very.
And oh my God, I got yelled at by a whole bunch of people. Are
Yeah.
you crazy? You basically told her if she leaves detox,
That
she
you'd
could
have something
fentanyl?
waiting for her.
Are you nuts? It's like the opposite of what you're supposed to do, isn't it, Laura?
It depends on what you think should be happening.
But that's the
If-
thing that I'm saying too, is like that might not work for other people in my situation, but I know what worked for me. You know what I mean? So other people, if they got told that, no matter what, they would already have dead set in their mind, I'm gonna make it so it doesn't work out at detox, and I'm going home to get fucked up or to get high or to use. That could be for a different person. They would already have their mind made up about what was gonna happen. So that's not an option for everybody. but it did necessarily work for me because I stayed in detox. I felt safe that if it didn't work out, I had something to fall back on, but it did work out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it didn't make me want to leave and go home to use. I still knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to get clean.
Yeah, I get the sense that knowing that you had a plan B allowed you to take that step to
Yes.
to say, I'm going to try this, and if it doesn't work out for whatever reason, I've got a plan B. And that to me sounds like harm reduction. When we talk about harm reduction, that's actually what we're talking about. We're talking about what you need to have in place to be as safe as possible. We already know that there's lots of risks to using fentanyl. We know
Mhm.
that. And we also know that sometimes using doesn't feel like a choice. And so when we talk about harm reduction, we're saying, okay, so what's in place to provide the most safety that we can? Whether that's like reducing, how much you're using, to having a Narcan kit, to not using alone, um, to making a decision to have a plan B about how you're going to use as safely as possible in the event that you're leaving detox.
So, since we're on this topic, when this came up, when we went to detox, and boy, when I told the nurse at detox about the backup plan, were they ever surprised? They were like, "What? You have what at home?" So they weren't on board with that at all.
A lot of people wouldn't be, I think, that's just my thoughts on it. Like, I don't think a lot of people would say, hey, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's not heard of, but like I said, we're doing this to change things.
So, Zoe, what do you want people to know when somebody is choosing to use to avoid withdrawals?
So many people that have never been in this situation of addiction. A lot of the time their question is, oh my God, like, aren't you scared to use? You might die. You could overdose. Yeah, that's scary. But us as addicts, we have the fear of what the fuck is going to happen to my body if I don't use.
Fentanyl heightens one's anxiety, does it not?
Yes. Yes, definitely.
It
I
takes
would,
it takes a
yes.
normal person and creates a super anxious person.
Yeah. In my position, that's what it did. Yes.
Yeah, and you're pretty, I would say, you're a healthy person. You think about your health, you think about what you eat, you think about what you drink. You eat
Yes.
healthy foods for a reason. You eat oranges, you drink milk for calcium,
My
you
vitamins.
take your vitamins. So you're
Yeah.
very health conscious.
I am very health focused right now. I am.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I've ever thought so much in my life about quitting smoking, eating proper, going to the gym. I think in this past 6 months, I have thought about it more in my life than I ever have throughout my whole life.
Going back to deciding whether to use or not, you said the biggest fear you had is what if you can't use, what's going to happen to your body? So I just want to emphasize that's a real fear about what's going to happen if I don't get fentanyl in my body. But add on top of that, the anxiety that fentanyl makes you feel. And it just explodes. It's like a cascading event. You got the withdrawals, you got the pain, you got flu symptoms, you got tingly skin and burning skin, constantly like
Your
insects.
mind is fucking like feels like you're going insane. It's literally hell on earth. Like when I think about it, it's worse than childbirth. It's worse than, oh God, it's worse than anything I've ever experienced in my whole entire life. Like, it's horrible. I don't wish it upon my worst fucking enemy. Like, I would wish that upon nobody.
Yeah, and I can attest to that. I would wish that on nobody either.
Hmm.
Oh, watching you go through some of these withdrawals and watching all this stuff happen in your brain and how you process the pain and how you deal with the pain and the chants that you would say and the meditation that you would have to get into. And you weren't really into meditation. You still aren't.
Mm-hmm.
But oh my God, you tried it because you would try anything
Yeah.
to get that feeling dealt with, so to say,
Yes.
to get
Mm.
those 100 feelings dealt with.
Can you talk a little bit about that? What meditation or what mantra?
So Zoe was doing some writing when she was going through withdrawals. Do you remember any of them off heart, Zoe?
I actually have my book here with a few of
Yay.
them in there. I could actually pull it up. Give me a second.
So Zoe would say these chants, and some of them were from the poetry that she had written. And she would say them over and over, and she'd be rocking back and forth. And I remember she would take her hand and make it into a fist and then out into the stretched 5-fingered position. And she would do that constantly, rocking back and forth, making a fist, saying the chant.
So this is the one that you probably remember here. So I wrote this one on December 26th, the day after Christmas, 2021. I can do this for me. I can do this for my children. I can do this for my life. I can do this for my family. I can do this for my future. I can do this and I will do this.
And you would say it over and over. You'd repeat it over and over. And you weren't too much into meditation and chanting, but man, you would try anything to get rid of the pain, to stop the pain.
That was a big one that I just even saying it right now, it almost brings me back to just that time. You know, it's almost like that deja vu feeling.
And this was going on for weeks, between 10 and 14 weeks. And for the listeners, I mean, just put yourself in that position. And again, we've only gone to a number 6 on the 1 to 10 scale of pain. Could you imagine doing that for 2 months, being in that position? It was hell on earth for Zoe.
Were there other things that helped? Like what, if anything, helped get you through it? You had the chance that you just shared. What else?
Well, a huge one you guys probably already know was my dad.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was one of my main reasons of being so determined to do this and get through it. Like I said so many times before, you know, when my dad passed away, my whole outlook on life changed. Everything about it. I became a different person, you know, the way I thought was different. I was it was just different. Like at the flick of a switch, my whole life changed.
Was it what had happened to him, or was it that he suddenly wasn't there?
I think it was kind of a mix of actually both of those things. You know, like I knew what he wanted for me. I knew what he wanted for himself. And then again, it had to do with how he passed away. I cannot imagine making my kids feel the way I felt when I lost my dad. I couldn't do that. That pain that I felt when I found out that he passed away, I never felt anything like that in my life. And I could not, for the life of me, put my kids through that, or anybody else for that matter. I can't, I couldn't, I won't.
When I think back, you know, to your dad, you know, it wasn't, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it comes up for you guys, but in my mind, I think like that wasn't supposed to happen because Dennis was on top of it.
I know.
And he understood, and you know, nobody was a better expert on this than him.
Yeah.
And you know, part of us is like, yeah, we know that can't be true because so many people are dying. And it's because fentanyl is so, so powerful. But Dennis was really good at this, and he knew how to get off it, and he had done it before, and he was really careful, and he knew how to be careful. And so when this happens to Dennis, it's,
If it
it's
happened to my dad, literally, it can happen to anybody because my dad is just, like you said, he just knew what it was. He knew better than anybody. This is just, this was not the plan. This was not supposed to happen.
Mhm.
Do we know how long Dennis was using fentanyl for? It must be close to 20 years.
Yeah.
It started when he got into an accident.
Yeah.
He was prescribed Percocet and Oxys. The prescription ended up having to be more potent and eventually got bumped to fentanyl
Mhm.
patches.
And I
Oh,
remember
yeah.
Zoe telling me a couple of stories about how if they were all together and there was a few people in the room, Dennis would be the first one to try it. He'd be the first one to use it because he had the highest tolerance and he could make sure that it was good stuff. So I'd like to kind of bring us back to the withdrawal. What I described first was a level 6 on the scale. I'd just like to quickly read the rest of these. 7 on the scale would mean the burning and tingling would include her legs and arms too. 8 would be tingling and burning all over her body. A 9 would be like an 8, but tingling would be very sharp, like the needles, the insect legs were going deeper into her skin. Zoe would sometimes push up to 2 hours with a level 9. She was trying her absolute best to make the time schedule we had. She rarely ever dosed earlier. And where one would say, "Good job, Zoe," the truth was she was in excruciating pain for over an hour and in extreme agitation for maybe 4 hours. And that's a level 9. A level 10 included muscle cramping, many muscles and all at once, slowly but surely and irreversibly stiffening and tightening, flexing uncontrollably. When one of the muscles was her hand muscle, for example, she wouldn't be able to uncurl her fingers to hold the tinfoil when dosing. A couple of times, I had to uncurl her fingers for her. A level 12 was everything listed so far happening all at once, plus vomiting and diarrhea. Zoe had a couple of accidents where she didn't make it to the toilet on time. Zoe was falling apart and she knew it. Her anxiety was always turned on regarding her health. And she had a constant nagging feeling telling her the fentanyl was having a larger toll on her body than anybody had thought. A part of Zoe was getting ready to die. And I don't know if anyone's been in that situation where maybe you're in the hospital or maybe you're really sick, but the thought of dying comes across your mind. That is a hard thought to control when you're feeling all of these things and your anxiety is out of control and your depression is out of control. To handle that thought that you could be dying is pretty insane.
It's a scary, scary feeling.
Do you have anything to add about the pain itself, Zoe? Did I miss anything there? We covered tingly skin, burning skin, muscle cramping, vomiting, diarrhea, the constant sickly feeling you have, the constant stomach ache, kind of queasy feeling. Is there anything else that I'm missing?
There was the nauseous feeling, the unable to eat, the mental exhaustion of not feeling just, I don't even know if I can use the word normal because everybody has their own normal, but just, I guess my normal, I didn't feel my normal. Nothing
Yeah.
about it was normal. My thought process wasn't normal. My body wasn't normal. There was aches, pains, vomit, diarrhea, nauseous, the urge to stretch, like I said, every part of my body. Just, it was so horrible that it was almost like a surreal feeling, like almost like a dream-like state where like, is this, it doesn't even feel real. It's And then other things that would happen are like I wouldn't be able to get a deep enough breath. And most people would be like, oh, you smoke. No, it wasn't that, because I'm still a smoker and I have my air. It's like my lungs just wouldn't expand enough. Nothing worked normal, like nothing worked properly, whether it be my brain, my lungs, my legs. Like I'd have restless legs. The restless legs is where you basically, your legs like have a mind of their own and they have to move. And it's so fucking annoying because there's times where I would literally beat the shit out of my legs to get them to stop. And it's such an annoying feeling. And then if it got really bad, it was like my whole body would feel like that, where I would have to move it or stretch it, and I would be so physically and mentally exhausted, and I would just want to be able to sleep, and my mind could lay there but my body couldn't. Just the exhaustion on top of all of the withdrawal symptoms, like you literally feel like you're losing your fucking mind. You're going crazy. You can't sleep, you can't fucking eat, you can't use the bathroom properly. Nothing works right. It is so frustrating and it's heartbreaking. It's sad. Here I am fucking, at the time, 27 years old, and my body's not working.
Yeah, that scared the hell out of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It scared the hell out of you because you're a health conscious person, and it scared the hell out of you because your anxiety was way blown out of proportion because of the fentanyl.
Mhm. And it's weird because yes, the fentanyl made me super anxious. Like I looked at small things like they were the biggest thing in the room, like I've said before.
Yep.
And when I used, all of that anxiety and like worried feelings, they would just, it would kind of numb out until it started to wear off. And then the anxiety would come back, it would set in for that little while right after using. All of that just went away,
Just like that, went away.
just like that. But then it was just 1,000 times worse, because then it would just all come rushing back in, and then it would be overwhelming, and the overwhelming feeling would cause more anxiety, more stress. Then it would send me into depression because I would overthink things, and it was just a vicious cycle, all of it. It was really, really just a vicious cycle, man.
And just to put this into perspective, you should have been depressed. You had a lot of crap that happened to you.
Yeah.
You lost your kids. You lost your boyfriend of 10 years.
Yeah.
You lost your home and
And everything in it.
everything in it.
Oh
So
yeah.
you had absolutely nothing on you. You had not a cent of money in your name. And then your dad died. And you had a special relationship with your father.
Mhm.
But he was also supplying you with fentanyl. He was your lifeline.
Yeah.
And now he's gone. You had absolutely nothing and nobody. And again, I just want the listener to add that level of depression on top of all the pain that she was suffering. And then add on top of that all the anxiety. And this was real anxiety. And just as an example, the anxiety of not knowing where the next batch of fentanyl was coming from because we were so broke.
You can say that again.
Yeah.
So I don't want to sound all Pollyanna. There's just a part of me, I guess, when things, and I get it because we're talking about just how low things were and maybe how desperate things were really feeling. So, what got you through this? How did you get through this?
I made up my mind about what I wanted. I didn't want to feel like that anymore. I didn't want to be depressed. I didn't want to let my kids down. I wanted to be mom again. I wanted to get my shit together. I wanted my body to function again. I didn't want to wake up and have to use in order to start my day or get through my day. I wanted to wake up and be genuinely happy. There's so many things that I wanted so bad that I was so determined to get to. You know, I had a great team, you know, my Uncle Daniel, my Auntie Laura, my kids, you know, my dad, my mom, my family in general. Like, don't get me wrong, they're some of them were hard asses, you know, and it was, you know, either get clean or fuck off type thing, you know? Like if you really wanted it, you would do it. A lot of them didn't understand the whole process and how hard it was, you know? They just looked at it as if like if you want it, you'll do it. You'll figure it out. You'll find a way, and when you do, I'll be here to help. But until then, you're shit out of luck, you know? Like there's nothing I can do to help you until you help yourself. But I just, like I said, I just woke up with a different outlook. I wanted it. I knew what I had to do to get it. So I did it.
You know, I think you're talking about something that I think humans are just incredibly powerful. And sometimes we hear about people's stories and, you know, it's kind of like a war zone. Like when you're describing all of this and everything that was going on, it's like akin to like a war zone. And, you know, I'm always amazed by the power of humans to, you know, even in the worst of it, to find something to hang on to and to find and to hold hope, and how the littlest amount of hope, or maybe it's not little, but that desire to, that decision to be hopeful and to decide that you want something else can just be so incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And so, you know, even as we described, like there were so many things going on around you that were not helping. And yet, despite it all, you know, you make this decision, you know, and you say to yourself, I want something different.
Yeah, and just to be clear, when that decision was made, all right, I want to change this. I'm assuming that's when you came to me and kind of I hate using the word come clean because Laura educated me on that word a bit. But when you came to me and you spoke to me that night, that's when you decided, I've had enough. I want to change. I want to change right now. And that's when the struggles began.
Yeah.
And I can't help but think it shouldn't be like that. When an addict finally decides, I've had enough, I want to quit, the doors should be swinging open for that person. And resources should be pouring at that person. But one, how do they know that she's finally made up her mind? And two, how do you turn that into a positive experience of quitting fentanyl? We went through this for 2.5 months. Zoe almost died. It shouldn't have been that way.
It shouldn't have had to get to that point.
So we got to a point, and it was shortly after that story that I explained earlier where I thought Zoe had died. And, oh, I didn't even finish that story. When Zoe finally came to, she said to me, Uncle Daniel, this is probably going to be easier if we do this in detox. And that's the moment she decided to go. And it was coincidental, and I was celebrating inside like, holy shit, I couldn't wait to get out of the room and call Laura and say, guess what?
Yeah.
I couldn't wait. And then coincidentally, we got a phone call within 2 or 3 days saying the bed's ready. And away we went.
Yeah.
So, Zoe, I want to take a moment. I want to take a moment to just kind of like bring us back. You've talked about a lot of really activating things today. You've
Yeah.
shared a lot. You've shared a lot of your personal stories. You've shared a lot. We've talked about your dad. It's very activating. I want to thank you for being open and transparent and for sharing. I also just want to like wrap you up in a great big hug.
Right?
I want to wrap you up in a great big hug and you know just to and I just want to remind you that oh, you've just done such an incredible job.
Thank you.
And thank you for trusting in me. And thank you for trusting in Uncle Daniel. And thank you for giving us a chance, you know, to support you in the way that you needed.
I
Because
could
I
say
think
the same
sometimes,
thing though.
yeah,
You guys are fucking amazing. Like I think back and I don't think if I had a different team that I would have been able to do and get through as much as I did and be where I am right now. You guys had no idea what you were doing. And as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing that you could have done better. Hey, Daddy O, this week's been a little bit busy. I've been on the other side of addiction, helping a couple of people with their substance use. It's a lot different helping rather than being helped. It takes a lot of patience, but so far, so good. And it just makes me want to further my education with helping people. I'm getting ready to apply to school this week, either at York U or George Brown. Not sure which one yet, but I'll figure it out. I did a few other things this week. I had to deal with my rehab program and counselor. I had to switch up the times that I attend program because I have the kids a lot more often lately and they're still doing online school. So now instead of the 2 programs a day, I just do the morning class. Uh, but yeah, that's going good too. I'm actually helping one of my friends get into the same program I'm in. I'm pretty much moved in with Uncle Daniel now, officially. I have my own room, and so do the kids. We're actually in the midst of setting up and buying beds for the kids now. They actually have your old room. They love it. They spend most of their time in there. We also had a family meeting today about chores, kind of what Uncle Daniel did for me and you, where he wrote a bunch of chores down and posted them on the fridge for us. Half the time they didn't end up getting done, but it was worth a shot. I got the kids to start helping me reorganize the kitchen. We emptied all the cupboards, cleaned it all out, threw a bunch of shit out. Now we just got to get new stuff to put in. The kids are really happy here, and I'm really happy to have them here. Life finally feels like it's getting back to normal a little bit. The rest of this week is going to be pretty busy too. I still have a lot to do. Hopefully go to IKEA and pick out the beds and start decorating the kids' rooms. But yeah, that's all for this week. I got a lot of shit coming up next week and so forth, but I love you and I miss you, Daddy-O. Till next week.